We just got done watching Problem Child. It's been years since I've seen it, and it was really refreshing seeing it as an adult. I feel like most of the time I was on Junior's side, and I felt like most of the people, especially the other kids, kind of had it coming when things happened to them, a la Junior. I couldn't help but see a lot of toxic masculinity symbolism throughout the movie, especially from Big Ben, but also a lot of things that sort of are mirrors to how 2019 is. For one, the campaign of Big Ben, but also how Little Ben, how the dad is interesting because he's incredibly forward and progressive for 1990, but his parenting style has taken over most parents' methods now. So it's sort of an interesting thing to look at as well because I was 5 years old in 1990. And so the parenting style or the type of kids were quite relatable as well.
Well, I just got through watching Problem Child. This was something that I watched at home. It was Nannerl wanted to talk about this film, and I can definitely see why now after seeing it. Basically, to try to sum this up in a minute would be hard for me. I have so much to say about the film, so I'll save that for when me and Nannerl talk. But ultimately, as a dark comedy goes, it's basically a documentary on my life, okay? Yeah, basically something very similar to my life, which is an odd thing because you think you have I thought I had a very special existence. I thought I was one of a kind, problems and all, like writing serial killers, stuff like that. And it's a dark comedy with the guy from Three's Company that tells me, well, maybe you don't have that life, or the possibility that the writers, and I'd like to look into the writers and who made the film more. Possibly they were inspired by the story of some of the, story of my life and other problem children that, I don't know. I don't know too many that have a life like mine, but so it's odd to see a film that is very reminiscent of my life.
Hi, Problem Child.
Oh my goodness, fuck. That was like a documentary on my life. I got to tell you, when you had told me about this a long time ago, that your sister had said, what is, in your conversation with your sister, I believe,
yes,
she had said, what is he, the problem child? And you I don't want to say you went on, but you told me about this movie. And I was like, yeah, not interested. I looked at it and I was like, it looks like a Disney movie. I'm not a comedy, and dark comedy, whatever. I just did not get it when I saw the John Ritter thing, even though I like Three's Company. Mm-hmm. I did not. I just thought, yeah, whatever. Seeing it, like you having this set up, so we had to see it for this recording.
Yes.
I am blown the fuck away by how many similarities are in my life. That so blown away that I had to look up the writers of the film, because I'm like, could my life be so unoriginal? Even though I felt like journalists tell me, people say I have an extraordinary life. What a story. And so I look into the writers, and one of them's from Indiana, right near Chicago. And he's about the age, he's a little older than me, but he would have seen all of my antics in the newspapers.
Oh,
and a lot of these stories were told in newspapers. So I would not doubt that this person it was influenced. And I don't mean, I say that a lot, and it's just true. When you're an outlier or an underground artist, you influence popular culture. It's just the way it is. It's not me bragging, but it's, that's not something to brag about, but necessarily. But it's like, I genuinely think that I would love to talk to the writer or, ask him someday if that he had ever known about me or read about me, because it was so similar. And I don't know anyone that wrote serial killers as a kid. I don't know anyone.
Yeah, that seems like such an exclusive thing. I wonder if you could find just via Google the information for the writers and get in touch with them and just be like, hey man, I just saw your movie.
You know, that's a great idea. I will, after we're recording, I will definitely look for the gentleman on Twitter where you can have direct conversations with people.
Yes.
And ask him if he'd, you know, like sometimes, you know, you're influenced by things and you don't realize it until a lot later. Like I've been influenced by things and someone will say, hey, do you remember I told you that story? And I'm like, wow, as a matter of fact, I did. And then like a year later, I made a piece of art that was influenced by that story, but I didn't realize it when I did the art. You know what I mean? But it was in my subconscious. But when I'm reminded of it, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. Just like me wanting to get a theremin is influenced by your musical output. I'm like, I want to get a theremin to work with Nannerl on this stuff. So, but I didn't realize it when I was looking at it. You know, I did not realize it until we started talking later. I was like, yeah, I guess, yeah, I was influenced by your music,
Maybe.
the stuff you put. No, I think so. I had to think about it, and I had to be real about it, and not go, you know, this is just natural curiosity. It was like, no, the curiosity sparked with this cool witch house music we've been making, and I wanted to contribute in a way that was weird. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, how many whoopee cushions would you give Problem Child?
Oh, all of them. Whatever we're doing, 10, 10, 5, 5, 4, 4, whatever.
Maybe five whoopee cushions, 5 bow ties.
5 of 5, is it? Yeah, at the top. It was a very well-made movie, like they made when they made, like in my day, kids. That's how you made a dark comedy. You know, it was well made. It wasn't cheap. You know, it wasn't cheap to make.
Too. Like some of the humor was quite crude for its time. I felt like, and like, I saw it as a kid, and I don't remember like the bird saying "dickhead" and stuff like that, and like it just popped out to me, kind of surprising for 1990.
Yeah, and it's so well written that you relate to so much in so many characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like I related to the marriage too as my adult life. Like that. There you go. That's basically it. That's my marriage, right there. Okay, it's like a documentary of my life as a child and an adult. You know, when I reached the kind-hearted part of my life, it was whatever. You know.
So I kind of took notes as I was watching it. So I took a bunch of notes in chronological order. The first thing I actually was really curious about was, did you notice that this took place in Illinois?
Yes, of course, when I saw the plate and the flag, and I took notes as well because you told me you took notes. I took notes and I have stories. I actually have stories that match a lot in this film. That's what made me so weirded out. I was like, what in the fuck, dude? Like, what in the fuck? That's right out of one of my stories. So it was.
Let's start with that. I think that's a fantastic place to start. So let's hear how parallel Problem Child was to Shane's life.
Okay, well, I did go to Catholic school. I did play with nuns, but the fish tank story, the fish tank right away, where he's sucking fish out of the tank. I have a story when I was young, about that age, maybe a little younger, that my parents had a huge saltwater fish tank, a saltwater fish. So there's beautiful colored fish in there, eels. And I went to the tank and I used to tap on the tank with my plastic hammer, like a little plastic hammer that, you know, like children have. And, you know, I looked around and I my memory was I wasn't getting that attention. So I remember picking up my father's hammer he left in the kitchen one day, and I hit the tank with it. And the tank exploded.
A real hammer.
A real hammer. And the tank exploded right in front of me. And then I'm like screaming because there's eels and weird fish flopping around at my feet. And I'm like, ah! Like, fuck.
What did the eels do? Did they bite you?
No, they're just sliding around for their lives.
Okay.
They're like,
I don't know much about eels.
Well, when fish are out of water, they sort of flop around and are desperate. So that's what it looked like a lot of desperate fish going, please, I can't breathe. You know, like they're dying in front of me. So they all died.
Oh.
And it was a big deal, and the whole place was ruined. You know, the whole floor was ruined because it's a huge tank, like 80-gallon tank or some shit. So it's like, you know, like, and the tank is ruined, this hobby's ruined. So, you know, I had a lot of instances like that. And like in Catholic school, I was locked in bathrooms by nuns. I had to kneel on beans, but you know, they put beans down and you'd have to kneel for like a half hour.
Oh,
well,
I've had to kneel on rice. That hurts.
Right. And
that's
so
a nasty form of abuse, by the way. Anyway.
Yeah. But so it got worse for me because I didn't submit. And so it would be a half hour, then an hour, then it was 8 hours on beans, kneeling on beans. And so they really, and actually one of the nuns dug her nails into me, made me bleed once because I was so like, she was looking at me and trying to scare me, and I just smiled at her. I was not going to be intimidated. Like the kid in that movie, I just smiled, and she dug her nails in, and I bled, and she started crying. Like, oh my God, she made a child bleed. You know, I pushed her to the point of making me bleed. So she started crying, ran out of the room, and I was laughing about it. And then they would lock me in the bathroom. Like there's a bathroom there, and I get upset. And I was supposed to have timeouts. So it was supposed to be like 15 minutes in the bathroom, which became 4 or 5 hours, and I just sleep on the bathroom floor. And so those were some instances. Like I said, the parents were very much like but let me see. The parents, that seemed just like my marriage. It was like, oh God, not a remembrance of that. Nutrition or discipline, ain't that the truth? The kid says that. I'm wondering if I'm getting nutrition or discipline, and that's there's a fine line there, right? Writing Gacy when I was young, like, and that's in newspapers. Like I wrote them when I was young. I rode my bike up there and we started writing that stuff. And actually, Gacy wrote a letter to Merle Allen. It's on my Instagram. I would read it for you now later on if you wanted, or another time. But we spoke about the Gacy stuff in another episode. It's my ties with Gacy. And Gacy had actually written a letter about me saying, "Don't trust that guy Shane. He's evil," or something like that. And I was like, oh my goodness, the serial killer's calling me evil? You know, I start to think about that. It was funny to hear the kids say "stupid humans" in there. That's something like the Satanic Tribe says all the time.
Yes.
Like, there was a lot of satanic stuff in there. Even the kid's collar at the end when he's driving the car, the red car, when he takes off, on the collar, his Boy Scout patches, whatever patches they were were pentagrams. Were upside, like satanic pentagrams. So I was like, wow, they're upside down stars. The diabolic or Diablo circus. And so that's a sign.
Oh yeah, I saw that Diablo Brothers circus. I had that actually written right at the top of my notes too.
Right, and the kid's dressed as a devil, called Satan throughout the film. So I wouldn't doubt that one of those writers has a tie to the Church of Satan. I don't know yet, and he would know me. I don't doubt. There's just too many similarities. But especially stupid humans. That's what all Satanists say. They separate themselves from the human being, which is a mistake. Yeah, and those are the drop the bat when he's like he's playing the baseball game.
Yes.
Just don't drop the bat, and he's like, excellent, good idea, and he runs through the thing and starts hitting kids with the bat as he's running the bases. Well, I was on a football team and I was getting bullied once, and I was a big kid when I first started peewee football, and then I stopped growing, and other kids got bigger than me, and I was not used to that, and so these kids were bullying me. And I would tell the coach, I tell people, and I think it's either a coach or my father said, well, you just got to slug one of them. And I remember we were running in laps, and I took my helmet off, and I'm watching these two kids. And I run by them, and I smack one of the kids with my helmet in the fucking stomach and the other kid in the head. And the kid, they both drop. Like, the kid drops in the head like he knocks out. He's bleeding on his head, and he just falls over and is asleep. And the kid in the stomach can't breathe. He's like, and the coach goes, what the fuck are you, like, he swears at me, and I'm a little kid. He's like, what were you thinking? I'm like, I'm thinking I'm going to end them picking on me. That's what I'm thinking. He's like, run these laps. And so I had to run laps for like an hour, like just run while they bring an ambulance to the place to get this one kid because I knocked him in the head with my helmet. But, I told everyone I was being bullied, and the only thing I remember being told is knock the shit out of one of them. So very much like, to keep the bat, hold the bat. I'm like, okay, I'm going to use my helmet, not my fit. I'm going to use my helmet and fucking murder these motherfuckers. Because I was being picked on, and it's just the way it is. I think, there's a lot of lessons in that film that I would agree with, like the love lessons, attention lessons, nurturing, stuff like that. And I found it interesting that the kid was so inquisitive, that early on his questions got him in trouble. Like, he's like, hey, I wonder why you don't eat this stuff, to the nun. And they just feed it to him. And he's asking the kid a question. And the kid right away says, hey, don't get us in trouble again.
Yeah, keep your head in the sand.
Yeah, and I was like, that's all I do is ask questions. And my questions lead me to enemies, always. Like, it unravels things. I remember, like, with the West Memphis 3, when I went on that road trip, I started asking questions of this donation stuff, and it unraveled this controversy where people started being upset at the West Memphis Three and like they didn't like me anymore. And I was like, oh God, I love these, I want to support these guys, but there's something wrong. My inquisitive nature found fraud, and I couldn't stop asking the questions. I had to keep unraveling the whole thing until I unraveled people that I supported. Like I do support them. I believe they were wronged. I understand being desperate and having to raise money, but I think you got to be ready to answer questions. And if you're going to hide stuff, answer questions. You can hide it, but they couldn't hide it from my questions. And so anyway, I related to that a lot. Like the question, like my inquisitive nature has gotten me deeply in trouble. Well, not in trouble, but doesn't make you friends when you're inquisitive to a point of having integrity. Yeah. So that questions of my childhood would pop up from time to time for me. Oh, I don't know what that means. Lesser, don't trust. Oh, don't trust. When the lesson is don't trust, especially your father. When the father says to the son, and this is the older son, the father. There's the grandfather says to the father, Big Ben says, the lesson of this is you don't trust because his father sold everything out from under his son. Right. The grandfather sold everything out from under the father.
Yes.
And he says, the lesson of this tale is don't trust anyone, especially your father. And I can relate to that in present day, like don't trust anyone, especially your wife. But I don't. I still have trust in my heart. And, I understand there's a fine line between trust and skepticism and paranoia. And it's a hard balance sometimes. So you got to definitely keep watching yourself and keep skeptical of a situation. But life without trust is not a really pleasant life.
Right.
So those were the notes I took, and those were the memories I had. So there you go. It was great, and now I see why you did this.
All right. So I actually want to start off with the trust no one remark and just turn it back to you to show you that it was very interesting to me that this kid was a magician, whereas the grandfather, as well as, I'm just going to call the bowtie killer Kramer, because it was Kramer from Science.
It was hard to get that out of my head. Right.
All I saw was Kramer, and he was just That's Kramer, right. And that was perfect. If I saw a bad guy, I want it to be Kramer. So anyway, Kramer and Big Ben were con men, and they both told the kid to trust nobody, that they trust nobody. Like when he's driving and stuff. So it was an interesting parallelism because they also were toxic masculinity, both the grandfather as well as the con man, the Kramer.
Yes.
The biggest thing that stood out to me was this traditionalism versus development progress. And the traditionalism, the bullying of the nuns, the bullying of the wife. And it was an interesting juxtaposition of females bullying as well as toxic masculinity bullying. It wasn't just one gender.
Right.
And the dad was so interesting as an adult in 2019 because his parenting style is more common now, whereas he was kind of a woo-woo, a little oversensitive for 1990. He was always reading new self-help books. He probably sees that character would see a counselor now. He would, make sure his son is doing well emotionally, things like that. He was a very self-care sensitive man, even though he was a man's man. He wanted to be a dad. He was the guy in the... It wasn't a members only jacket, but it was a jacket I told my husband, please don't ever get a jacket like that. Please promise me this. But he had a dad jacket on. He had a dad ball cap on, and he wore blue, which is what we are told as a young age is a boy color. And I thought it was very interesting that he wore the costume, but he was nothing like his father. And he was definitely making his own decisions. He didn't agree with his wife all the time. Like when they decide to send him back and then they realize that he's been sent back 30 times before, he realizes, no, I gotta break the cycle. I gotta stop that. let's see what I got here.
And it's these kind of people that have entered my life.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the guides that have saved me from like a prison term.
Right. Right. He's a mentor.
Yeah. Or just kind-hearted folks that are willing to not be so afraid of me. And they're usually always women, though I have been bullied by women, much like nuns and stuff like that. And my mother and wife and all this stuff. They have been pretty awful, taking advantage of me. But that's also like yourself, even you being willing to work with me and not be afraid. Like, this guy's not afraid. Like, it's been cool. That's been cool. And so those are the people that have really, yourself included, have helped me be able to navigate my life in a way that is pleasurable for my insides. Like I feel good. Trust is, like I said, life without trust is not a good life. And I've had that.
Even the neighbor family with the girls and the boy, that dad was like total toxic masculinity kind of dad, man's man kind of dad. And he was like the keeping up with the Joneses dad, always with the big stereo system, stuff like that. And it's okay. So the funniest thing about these parents is that, and maybe one of the reasons I like this movie is because I was 5 in 1990. So this child was, close to my age. The kids are all my peers. And so these parents are all actually baby boomers. And it's a funny fine line between the two baby boomers. The little Ben is more of a Generation Jones, so he's a later boomer. Didn't have the same entitlements in childhood as the other one who's a, peak boomer is the neighbor. I really liked how when they went camping, he gave little Ben that hat that said dad, but then he had to make his dick bigger with the super dad hat when camping. But then I loved it so much when the dad not only takes his car away from him, but he rips the super dad hat off of him, kind of like dethroning the usurper kind of thing. And like it was really cool that he took control of things. It was very mighty of him.
Yeah.
Okay, so the devil costume looks like Xena when she was in her cowl and stuff when she was 6 years old at the public baptism.
Xena LaVey of the Church of Anton LaVey's daughter, which she's gone on to be involved in other religions.
Yes, I refer to her as Xena, as she does not go by the last name anymore. She's very much like Madonna or Cher now.
Good for her.
Yeah, but
I find she's cool.
The photo was like the photo of her when she was like 6 years old looked very much like that little boy, and I felt like that's a little too on the nose looking.
I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right.
The kid's mustache and beard was very LaVeyan also, I thought.
You're right. Well, LaVey has definitely influenced a lot of stuff, even to the Disney. Some Disney characters are very LaVey influenced, for sure.
The way that he fucked with that little girl's birthday party, LaVey would have laughed. And, like, oh my God, everything he does at that girl's birthday party, I'm sorry, that little girl was the biggest asshole. And she, I had such a problem with that little girl on two sides of it. I was often the kid that was their mother was friends with my mother kind of kid who they would be told to be nice to me. But I've also been told, be nice to this person. So on both sides of that, I think that's the worst form of parent. It's kind of like kiss your uncle kind of coercing a child. Give them their choice to not like someone. It's okay. People are not going to like them, and they're not going to like people. Let them have their opinions. But anyway, that girl was such a shit. And the way she was like, you can't see my magic show and stuff like that. I've been that little boy at birthday parties when I was a kid. And so I felt so vindicated for him when he like threw the presents in there. And so when she's flailing her arms and crying during the like montage of It's My Party, I couldn't stop laughing. Like I had tears coming down my eyes. I was crying too.
That's great. Now that brought back a memory too. Like I've done things like that, but not as, of course, exaggerated when I've been in those situations. The one, and a handful of times now that I think about it, but one that comes to mind is right before I dropped out of high school, freshman in high school. I was having a real hard time, and this kid who bullied me, and we talked about it on the Bully Show that's coming up in season 3. Mm-hmm. This kid at the Hill House, he was bullying me, and we were in a ceramics class, and he did all this wheel pottery on the wheel. And I went in and fucked up all of his pots. Like I put holes in them. I fucked them up. I snuck in because I put tape on the door when the teacher would lock the door. Uh-huh. I put tape on it so I could get back in, so I could break in and fuck up this guy's pots. And the teacher's like, I don't understand what happened. The door was locked. I don't know who could have done this. And I'm like, and the bully knew it was me, but I had such cover. I was like, I was at lunch. I couldn't have done it. The door was locked. So I didn't beaten up, but I did destroy all the kids' pots, and and it made him so upset that he quit the class. He quit ceramics, so he never made a pot again. And so, well, whatever. He's a bully. Stuck my head in toilets.
He had it coming.
I think so.
You know what? No one held a gun to that kid's head and said quit. But also, like, I don't know. What a dickhead. I
fight back, and I was happy to see him fight back no matter what. Like, that was good, the fight back. For me, I relate.
I'd like to come back to some of the toxic masculinity stuff because I have a ton of it written. But before I do want to give my husband credit for one symbolism that he noticed that I would never see because I'm not one of those people. The red car that little Ben owns is an Isuzu charade. His life was a charade until this kid woke him. Beautiful. Wow. That film was layered. It was a really well-made, cheesy film, but it was really well-made. That is a great observation, a charade. So, yes, I was blown away by that. I thought, like, okay, that's too awesome. Another charade kind of hypocrisy I saw, much like the nuns being hypocrites and feeding the children the disgusting food and not eating it themselves, was Big Ben's hypocrisy while running for mayor. So how he had his America for Americans was very MAGA. And but he also was selling the store instead of giving it to his son to Japanese businessmen, and he's old enough to be a generation who distrusts the Japanese, but also how he referred to the Japanese as the Japs. And then the head of the business firm who was buying the company from him, the last name of the man was Hirohito, who was the emperor of Japan during World War II. And wow. I thought that was beyond hilarious. That, like, what a dark, weird thing to be in there. It was like a weird slip.
Purposeful.
Yes, definitely.
What a wonderful film to know it was so layered. Wow.
And then, like, yeah, how he kind of, like, shits on Big Ben shits on everyone later on because the camera's flipped on him. I love that cliche in movies. That's one of my favorite tropes, is the whole, like, revealing to the people that their hero is a jerk kind of thing. The covert narcissist, even though it was like dramatic irony to the audience that this man is a jerk. We know he's a jerk. Now the everyman in Chicago or the suburb, the Illinois suburb see, what he is. The plumbers saw what a jerk he was.
Right.
It was interesting also the it's a boy trope. That the neighbor's wife was expecting a child and forcing little Ben to take the cigar. You better take it, have a cigar. Oh, it's a boy kind of excitement they had. What? Hold on just a second. Okay. The last thing about that part about little Ben is that what little Ben was wearing with the ball cap and the jacket.
And little Ben is the father of the child.
John Ritter, yes.
John Ritter.
As the kid progresses through the series, he ends up wearing a jacket at the end that's very much like little Ben's jacket. And when he ditches the bow tie, I noticed that he now is dressed just like his dad. He was wearing
the
a similar...
child's dressed like John Ritter,
yes.
not the grandfather, the father, and the child. Yeah, it gets so confusing because these generations.
Junior's dressed just like his adoptive dad at the end of the movie. Yeah. And it was an interesting, like he had a metamorphosis, his larval state kind of thing.
I loved when he pulled the artwork out of the desk, the John Ritter, the father.
That was the next I was going to go through, is that what a brilliant artist this child was. I thought it was amazing that this was his true feelings, and he had a wall up to everybody, and just how that dad felt seeing himself drawn like that. I felt for him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Something just like that is seeing that was interesting. I like when art is included in there, and I thought I have this art piece I'll show you a picture of sometime. Maybe I'll show you a picture of it later, and maybe we'll put it on the thing. It's some youthful art, but anyway, that was cool because I think art is where you express your truth. That's right. As a child, that's what I did. I had really ugly pictures and stuff like that. So for me, I've always expressed myself that way, and very similar to that kid.
Mm.
And not a lot of my friends did. They didn't not a lot of my friends were doing that. So, that's why I was like, oh, that's so great to see the artwork tell the story. The artwork expressed more than the visceral actions.
Even the artwork he had when he was at the orphanage is really, really good. I like... I don't know if you noticed, he drew a face on the globe inside of his room.
Yes. Yeah. I did notice that. Oh yeah. I love that. Yeah, and the skulls. Look at, he's drawing skulls like that's the sign that he's evil.
No Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, that was great in the Catholic school / adoption, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call those places?
Orphanage.
Orphanage, that's it. I was threatened as a kid. You're going to send me to an orphanage. They're going to send me to an orphanage, and they did eventually send me to Catholic school. Anyway,
there's an evolution of social class on this that was interesting too. How his mother, by the way, kids, when you have a baby, you don't get to walk off in your sexy boots like that right after giving birth. I'm pretty sure the mother dropped off the child into a mansion like maybe a week after she gave birth. That seemed like a really healthy mother after having a baby. So I'm getting confused. The first scene of the movie is the mother dropping off the baby, and the way that the kid tells
original mother.
Yes. So the kid is telling the story, like starting the story off as if his mother just gave birth, and I just thought that was like strange. I don't know, I felt like taking it literally and laughing, but anyway, it was interesting that the first place he's dropped off is like cream of the crop, this really ritzy place, and then the maid drops him off to an upper middle class family, and then to a poorer family, and then to a trailer, and then to an orphanage, and that like trickle down is very, like, it's kind of sad, but it's kind of interesting, too, that it's just kind of getting into a smaller and smaller cage kind of thing. And then it sort of comes back at the end when Kramer takes Junior to that circus to take him along, and Junior climbs up that the ladder up to the trapeze. More or less, the carnies help him. And it was almost like he found his people, I felt like, because like there's such a trope about, people in the circus, people in, burlesque. Carnies are very like a collection of adversaries, a collection of misfits. And so it was interesting that they just they didn't, like the trapeze artist who he pushed out of the way didn't go, whoa, and fall. She just kind of gracefully bent her body out of the way and let him get onto the trapeze with the artist already on it. Another spot within the circus this happened was when they were in the back lot where the elephants were, and one of the elephants smacked Kramer. And I thought that was interesting, almost like animals know what time it is. But also, the elephant almost seemed to help him as well. And it was just sort of an interesting thing that made me think of LaVeya as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed all of that. I just think of I can't help but think of my own life when I think of the film. I remember a story. I have to say this. I remember this story, like when I was first born, I was a toddler. And this is the story. Like, I know my mother on some video interview, I think it's, if you look on YouTube, Shunned under Ely Soda, there's a video. And my mother's in it. Linda, I like to call her Linda now. You know, I don't know what to call her, but she says something like, I'm glad Shane didn't turn out to be a serial kills. And I remember as the youngest age I could remember, they would always tell this story. This is the only story they would tell about me. Like, Shane woke up his father one time with a butcher knife, banging it on his chest, trying to like I was banging it on his chest, but it was not the sharp side, it was the dull side, or he would have to go to the hospital. And he woke up and they're like, he was like, well, it's because I kept stabbing him with my, you know, the pocket protectors. He had pens in his pocket, and when he'd hold me, I guess it stabbed me a bunch of times. So he's like, I think it's because I stabbed him that he want, you know, they're like thinking it was intentional that I'm whacking him with a knife. I have no idea, but that was the story. And I thought, boy, problem child since birth, like just like that.
And then that dad was saved from the bullet with not the grandpa's campaign button, but the prune. Yes, Chekhov's prune, which was just, you knew the prune was going to come back, but I actually wrote some notes about this prune. It wasn't his grandfather. It wasn't the grandfather who had the dad's back. This prune, which was given by his grandfather. And
the father of the junior. Man, there's so many grandfathers and fathers and mothers. It gets confusing.
So the prune,
John Ritter's grandfather.
Yes. I thought it was interesting that the prune was offered to Junior as a gift, as an heirloom, because prunes are plums with character, is what I put. It's had time to shrivel up, but it's still sweet. It may not be as pretty, and not everyone likes them, but they're there for you.
Oh, I love all the depth you see in this film.
It's so character, and I thought that was so sweet about the prune. I totally forgot about the prune until rewatching this.
Wow, that's you have so much heavy thoughts on this film, and I can't argue them. It sounds right. It was definitely a layered film. I've only seen it once now. I think you've seen it twice at least, and it's something that is your something you remember from a child. But you are right about those layers. That's great. That is great. One of the influences I would imagine this has had that they had in making this film that I kept going back to was Gene Shepard. Now, this is a author from Hammond, Indiana, and this other writer's from Indiana, and he came up with the movie A Christmas Story, among others. But if you look into those Christmas Story characters, there's very dark films like Phantom of the Open Hearth. Matt Dillon is I think the kid with the big glasses in that. 4th of July, something 4th of July. But Gene Shepard's film biography and his TV shows are as LaVeyan as it gets, and it's dark, and it's like the father. Like I think in the original Christmas Story film, even the father leaves the mother, runs away, leaves them, and they're all like fatherless. So the father wasn't this hero that he was in A Christmas Story or in one of his films. And it reminded me of that, you know, because there was the problem children there in Gene Shepard's films. And Gene Shepard, if you don't know who he is, Jerry Seinfeld would say that's his biggest influence and was his biggest influence on the TV show Seinfeld, if you kids know what Seinfeld is. And I think a lot of you do.
And if you don't, and you watch this movie, the bad guy in this movie is the best character on Seinfeld. And
that's where I was like, man, they must have been influenced by Seinfeld because so many. I mean, Gene Shepard, because so many people were. Even like there's an old metal band called Twisted Sister, and they have this song "I Want to Rock" or "I'm Not Going to Take It," and those are all songs written about things that he saw in Gene Shepard films. Porky's, the original Porky's, is influenced by Gene Shepard. So they're all about problem children. They're all about this kind of situation. But this film was really cool and layered. And I don't get out to those kind of Cinemaplex movies ever. I hate them. I'm such a snob. I go to foreign films, and I was really hating the prospect of watching this. But I have to say it was very layered and deep. There was a depth to it that I'm just so surprised. And that's the old school satire. I think they were able to sneak in lessons in between this having to make a commercially viable product. And so it was cool.
I'm really pleased that you saw it, and I sincerely thank you for giving it a chance. I know that you were kind of dragging your heels at it, but at the same time, I feel like, and I'm going to toot my own horn here, but I feel like it's going to be a challenge to recommend to you a movie you're going to dislike. I have impeccable taste.
I have a, you know what? And through our relationship, you've earned some trust I do have a trust for your art, Yay. Your food. I do have a trust for your advice, and that's a rare thing. So there's something to be said for that. So I did trust you to watch it, and I'm glad I did. What I remember, like your sister said that, and I know we've had conversations where you bring it up, and I sort of, because I don't know anything about it, I'm like, yeah, let's move past this point because I don't know what you're talking about. That's a reference point for you. I don't know what it is. I wonder, do you see me in that? Did you?
Oh, yes. Watching it, knowing what my sister commented and seeing it now as an adult and knowing you, I saw Shane the whole time. Like the outbursts the kid had, I could imagine you having them. The way that he questioned things, that's you. And
interesting. And it carried on into. Go ahead.
There were so many times that he seemed to honestly not know what was wrong. Or he seemed like he was just being him and he didn't understand why that wasn't okay. And that's Shane.
Yeah, I feel that way even today. There was some aspects of my life I've shaken. And it's only when I got to be about 49 I realized I was old. I didn't think, like, when you say your age, or people say, like, I'm 32 and they feel old, or 35 and they feel old. I'm like, at 35, I felt like 15 still. I just didn't get it. I did not get I was old until someone said sir to me. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, sir? I look in the mirror, and at that moment, I start to see things like, am I changing? Oh, my God, he's right. I'm a sir. So I didn't get it until I got to about this age. Like, I really didn't get it. But anyway, yeah, there was definitely similarities. Definitely similarities. And I have a streak in me that my first girlfriend, her name's Donna. And I've recently, when I came back to Chicago, we hang out, and I'm friends with pretty much all of my ex-girlfriends. I'm friends with all of them except my ex-wife. Mm-hmm. She was telling me, like, boy, I would hate to be, because I said, well, and I don't want to give away too many details. But she's like, boy, I would hate to be on your bad side in this situation. And I go, why? And she goes, Shane, you're a real motherfucker. You do get revenge, and sometimes it'll take you years. I've watched you plot for years. Something good about, like, that's, those people asked for it. And everyone in that film he acted out against asked for it.
Yes.
Like he didn't act out. He stopped acting out when there was a father, John Ritter, the father. When he was kind to him, he's like, I can't hurt this guy. I can't do nothing to this guy. I got to be cool with this guy because he's cool with me. He's not, no matter how I test him, he won't budge. And so that's very much how I am. If we can be cool, we cool. If we're not, and you fuck with me, you can almost guarantee I'm going to get you somewhere down the line. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's, people would consider that sociopathic or whatever. I don't feel it is. I feel it's like justice. And I think that's something that in the LaVeyan world you strive for, is justice within your life and within society.
This movie was full of justice. The whole movie had, like, the resolution was absolute justice, not just for Junior, but for the dad as well. His bitchy wife ended up with that pig.
Oh, God, that was...
That pig's nutsack in her face!
perfect ending for a narcissist like that. And I hate that my Linda, my mother, is trying very hard to be cool with me now. So I don't mean to paint her in this awful picture, but this is the truth of my childhood. She was very much like that mother in that film. And as my wife was very much like that wife, the child, the junior, the adopted kid's mother, and John Ritter's wife. Okay. So it's very, yes. This gets confusing when we're talking about it. So I'm over explaining that. The child's mother and John Ritter's wife was very much like my mother and my wife. Very, like you, as they say, you marry your wife a lot of times, or you marry your mother or your father sometimes. They say that. If you're lucky, you don't.
I feel like the John Ritter's character and Junior were definitely made for each other ultimately because they were both outliers in their worlds.
Oh, nice. Boy, you really nice. I would have, if I saw it again, I might catch that. But how I saw that is exactly what's kept me out of trouble, is the guides in my life from a little old lady. I remember when I first ended up on the West Coast after I lost everything in my storage area and quit talking to my family. Now, this is like 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I quit talking, and I talk, as you know, I can talk. And I quit talking. I went into this thrift store once, and I was at that point ready to walk into the sea. I was just totally giving up on things. And this older lady behind the counter came out from under the counter. She goes, "Hey, I know some shirts that would fit you really nice, and they're very nice shirts." And I sort of moved away from her because she touched my shoulder. Mm-hmm. And she goes, "Oh, I didn't mean to upset you by touching you." And I'm like, "It's okay. Show me the shirts." And she showed them to me, and she held them up, and she was just so kind to me. And I was there to get broken things for artwork. So she's like, "Why are you getting this?" And I go, "Well, I use it for artwork." And she goes, "Well, it's chipped. I'll give it to you. And I'll save all the chipped junk for you, Shane." And so she made me feel special. And it's those folks, Miss Brandonizio in Addison, Illinois, that put me up on her couch 30 fucking years ago. All of those people saved my life. All those John Ritters, those are the people who saved my life. And I know I saw a Metallica video once. I know this is queer, and they did it in a prison. And all those prisoners look like me. They're all problem children. And I remember seeing that video, and I hate saying this really, but I started crying because I knew that I was one of those people, and I was just happened to have luck. I was lucky to attach to the right guides and unattach from people who were criminal. I'm getting out of here. So some of that is me, intrinsically me. I give myself some credit for choosing to follow the right guides, but without people being willing to, I don't want to say be cool, but not be afraid of things so much. So many people are afraid, and it's usually females that look at a big broody guy and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not worried about you, dude. Come on over here and try this shirt on." And so those things really are something to learn from in society, something to think about. That has helped me, and I can keep going on about it, but I won't.
I think the video you're thinking of is Saint Anger.
Okay, that's it.
The dude's in prison and they're watching Metallica play, right?
And watch their faces. You can see the problem child in it. Yes. You can see them. It's like, "Oh my goodness, look at you. You fucked up. You had a hard time." Very seldom is it this really genetically altered, fucked up person. This is bad luck and bad decisions. You chose to follow the wrong guide.
Yes.
You chose to output your anger in the wrong way. And look at you. Now you have all this regret and pain in your eyes in that prison. And it's so sad to me because I see myself there. And I've seen myself there so often when I've had to hold back from acting out. Because, a problem child can grow into something like a Timothy McVeigh, let's say, or a serial killer. I think there was a depth to that angle too. Here's what happens if you don't give the right guidance. What did the serial killer say?
"I'm not bad. I'm just misunderstood."
Yeah. And then he was like, I take care of me. Nobody, here he goes. "Oh, why is everyone always picking on me? Nobody cares about me but me." I've said those exact things. I've said nobody cares about me but me. And I'm going to trample your fucking ass, your flowers. And that's where this toxic like mountaintop removal. Like I could see myself getting into that business. Like I do not give if I rape the planet. Give a fuck. I will take it down for rich. I want my wealth and gold, and I don't give a fuck who I displace. I could be that person. And art, when they say art saves lives and all that stuff, those mentors had taken me to a different direction. But I can definitely see going to that angle and just not giving a fuck about anyone but me. And so, anyway, don't mean to be negative, but
I completely agree. And I think that we should all look into ourselves or look around our community for the John Ritters in our lives. Take those bow ties off.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and tune into our next episode wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. You can find us at Speak of the Devil Pod on Twitter and contact us at speakofthedevilpod@gmail.com. For Shane's artwork or to support his endeavors, please visit ShaneBugby.com or find him on Twitter at ShaneBugby. I've been Nannerl. Have a good one.
Oh, and ShaneIsTheDevil.com.